Welcome to the Love Government. I'm Dennis Leary and I'm speaking on behalf of the Love Government. We're doing a series of videos entitled Sex Cards. And I have the cards here in front of me. And it's part of a bigger system which you can access at the Love Government website. And in there, there's a book entitled The Love Earth Government, which has more of the information in detail. So this is the lover, 11, the 11th dimension, or the 11th aspect of herself, which is a teen. And we are going through the second column of this house, or the second suit of the card game. And this is the teenage state. We started off with woman, baby, child, and now we're up to teenager. This is a developmental sequence of our own individual lives. So the teenage stage is represented by this card, which is a tarot card, love card, the Page of Swords. We have a young, I'm interpreting this as a woman, young woman with a sword in her hand on the positive side, and that's called trust. So at this stage of development, as a teenager, we learn to trust ourselves. The baby stage, you learn to trust your mother, and at the child stage, you learn to trust yourself in play and with your playmates and so on and so forth. But at the teenage, you learn to trust your sexuality, because the teen ages are when puberty sets in, the hormones set in, and you become either on your way to becoming a man or a woman. In the love culture, which we're founded on, and we're linking to, and we're uploading, and we're connecting to, we're inviting in, etc. In the love culture, it was quite different than our culture. For the teens and for everybody, for the teenager in a love culture is protected with many mechanisms. One of them is the natural birth control. When the young woman or the young man becomes sexually active, the woman has a period of years where she's anovulatory. She can be sexually active, but she doesn't ovulate yet. So that's the time to experience sex. And that happened in the love culture. When the hormones start and you're attracted to sex, that's the time to do it. And then you don't have to worry about pregnancy if you're a woman. So the love culture was open sexually, well governed, because remember there's small units, 30 to 60 people perhaps, and all the units interact, so everybody knows everybody intimately. And if somebody begins to step out of line or be abusive, especially with sexual abuse, or pushing or intruding on somebody else's space and so on, it was immediately recognized, and it wasn't tolerated. The matrons of the community, who were the governing people, or the grandfathers, the grandmothers, would guide the people and say, this is appropriate, this is not appropriate. But sex was encouraged at these early teenage years. Sort of get it off your chest, get it under your belt, or whatever you want to say. They got it out of their system early. They had a lot of sex. They could have sex with, the way I'm envisioning it, they could have sex with themselves, they could have sex with the same sex or opposite sex in different ages and so on. So it wasn't a free-for-all, or wasn't an orgy. It was well governed and had a purpose to it. And that was to experience love in this dimension. Because we're here on this earth as basically animals with an overlay of soul and spirit. We're basically animals, and that means sexual animals. So the teenage girl and young man were introduced to sex, and it was safe sex, it was healthy, it was free, and it wasn't burdened and with punishment and guilt and shame as it is in our culture. So this, on the negative side, it is trust. The two words sound the same. Trust, and trust is trussed up with ropes or binds, or in this case blindfolds and ropes around her. I'm envisioning this as her teenager with 8 swords around her, which are phallic symbols. So she is in this culture of power over and being made an object and being abused. If not overtly, then covertly. There's a lot of covert abuse going on in an anti-love culture where people are manipulated an object and they become sexual predators and prey. So the love government is saying to turn the card. If you're in this situation, you can turn the card around to this. It's a dynamic system. And we do that by choosing and by leaning into the opposite. If you don't get stuck in one rut, you can do something different. If you feel safe, and if you want to, or if you're drawn to it. It's a free system also. So you can take these ropes off, but then this is what the reaction that you're probably going to get from yourself or other people. You start taking the blindfold off and taking the trusses off, and the person is going to say, "Don't do that. What are you doing? What are you doing? Oh, I don't want to say. I don't want to see this. I don't want to see this. I don't want to be that free. I don't want that." It's very threatening, and the system will kind of, because we're built up in a system of suppression, and we grow tolerant to it, and we grow comfortable with it. We create a comfort zone around ourselves. So if somebody comes and says there's a different way, and the way that you're doing now is not sustainable, it's not going to end up well. It's going to end up in suffering and death, and there's no escape hatch to heaven. And so there's this other way, which the way we were meant to be. The template is there, and we can incorporate those values. And you want to assist the person to take off the blindfolds and to take off the ropes that's binding them. And a lot of people don't want it. So you can be a good do-gooder, and you can do more harm than good for people if you try to force anything on them. So hopefully this is not a forced system at all. It's all free, free, free. I'm doing this free. I'm not getting any money for it. I'm offering it free, and I hope to never take any money for it. It's a freely offered, and then the person can freely accept it. It doesn't mean all at once. If you find a person in this situation, you don't suddenly take off the blindfold, because they may be blinded by the light, or take off the bands because they may fall down. They're so inoculated with the poison. They're so caught in the straitjackets that are designed for them purposely. So you do a little bit at a time. You can say, well, just lean into it, consider it, maybe. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to make any changes at all. Just, if you want to, consider the information. And then we don't know why people do the things they do. And sometimes we don't even know why we do the things we do. Life is kind of a mystery. But some people are attracted to love and some are not. Some don't want to have anything to do with the word even, because it's so upsetting to them, because under the aegis and the flag of love has run all kinds of abuse. I love you, therefore I can do this to you. I can force myself upon you. Or I can pick your pocket while I'm shaking your hand. Or I can force you off your land. Or I can steal your money. Or I can force you into a factory. Force you into prostitution. To make, if you want to survive, you got to do these things. This is the power system of patriarchy, as I said many times. This is the pyramid scheme. And this is a pyramid. It's a very small pyramid compared to this pyramid and this heart down here, which is nature-based. This we envision as in the very center of the earth, which makes it a very big pyramid. So these little pyramids here are patriarchal pyramids. They're very small. Even the big one in Cheops in Egypt is a very big pyramid, right? But in comparison with the pyramid I'm talking about, the pyramid of love is very, very big and solid and secure and safe. These things, even though they look like it, are very small in comparison. So in comparison with love, with the philosophy of love, with the understanding of love, that's all there is. That's the foundation of everything. And if it's put into a story, it does make sense. All of it's reasonable. All of it's natural. His story part of it is usually unreasonable. If you look at the deep reasons, it may be very technically advanced, but it can be morally devanced or retrograde. The teenage years are midway between childhood and adulthood. So the teen is preparing for the adulthood. Now in a supportive culture, or in our culture if you have a supportive family, it's a kind of an easy transition, but in our culture it can be really tough. The love government is a system of support in understanding, who we are. And not just understanding, but getting a feeling for our foundation. Getting a feeling for where we came from. And that feeling is pretty solid, at least the way I feel it, the way I experience it. But I've had to come through and take my own blindfolds off very slowly, take my trusses off slowly, so that I can build up my own trust. And in a sense, I go back to my own teen years, and then I redo them in a way. I reenact them in a way that I think is more natural. So I love the teenager inside of me. I love the child inside of me. I like the baby inside of me. I like the woman inside of me. And I love the love culture inside of me. But I make that choice based on the information that I have, knowing that I have at least two choices. Once again, we see this picture, this theme has been repeated a number of times already, and that is the young woman, in this case, the maiden or the maid. There is three stages in a woman's life in the love culture. It's maid, mother, and matron. So we're at the maiden stage here. She's holding the phallic symbol in her hand, which means she has control of the situation. That's the natural way. The woman, and still it is, the man proposes to the woman, and the woman decides. But not always in every culture, and sometimes the woman seeks the man out. She picks our man out, or she knows intimately or inwardly that this is the man for her, and then she goes for that man. So you can make really tough choices. You might think a man is the man for you, and you get to know him, and you find out his character is not at all like his presentation. And then you may be married, you have a child already, and then you're in very deeply, and you find out this man was not the way he presented himself to be. His real character comes out in close living quarters. So in a love culture, you're given that information all up front by the matrons in the society. So we do the best we can with what we have. Thank you for being with us on our journey. We wish you love, happiness, and joy. Thank you again.